Hi everyone, this is Megan Caravan. On YouTube and other sites you know me as GameFreak92928, and on Vampire Freaks I go by the name of Dolly Dementia. And the reason I'm making this video is because today is a very important day in my opinion. Today is what people are trying to start, the first ever annual Bipolar Day. And I think this is very important because bipolar mood disorder is something that people don't want to talk about. People don't want to acknowledge it exists. People want it to basically be the elephant in the room. And it's just, there's so many misconceptions. There's so many problems for people that have it now in this day. I know personally because I was diagnosed not too long ago, about 2, maybe 3 years, which does seem like a long time, except the fact that I've been suffering from this my entire life, and I'm only 23 at this point. And some of these misconceptions and falsehoods and all this stuff that people believe that are just simply not true is not only one of the reasons why it took so long for me to get diagnosed, but also one of the reasons why I find it so hard to live with. I'm not going to be able to go through all of it this video just because I haven't been very well the last few days. Also, that's not why I'm wearing this makeup. I wanted to go goth, but I haven't been doing my makeup for the longest time, so now I'm really out of practice, and I tried to do this as quickly as possible so I could get this video done, and I admit it's horrible. But I do want to acknowledge this day, and I do want to do something productive rather than just making a short video to acknowledge it, but I just don't have the energy to go through step by step all the misconceptions about bipolar, all the myths, all the half-truths, all the stigma. The stigma is the biggest thing, and I just don't have the energy to deal with that right now. But I do want to do something productive, so I just want to give you guys some tips. Not just for if you have bipolar disorder, because let's face it, like, everybody gives these people tips, and some of it works, some of it don't. I know for myself, everybody's suggesting the same thing. But I want to do something a little different because I'm one of those people who, since I have it, I understand, and one of the things that really get me down is when people feel that despite not talking about it because it's not something they want to discuss, they feel like they're experts on how to basically stop being bipolar, which is stupid. You can't stop being bipolar. It's a genetic condition. It's not, it's not a personality disposition. It's chemistry, not character, as my psychologist says. But I want to give some tips to the people who are living with people who have bipolar disorder. And again, I'm not an expert or anything. This is just simply my experience and what irritates me and what I think people can do differently to, really help these people rather than, just making things worse, essentially. So the first tip I want to give is basically, the first tip I want to give is don't make your friend or partner or son, daughter, mother, whatever, because everybody can have bipolar. Don't make them feel like they can't talk about it, like they can't express themselves, like they can't acknowledge their own illness. This is a real problem because I know, like, with a lot of other illnesses, like, somebody could be talking to you about it and you'll just, you'll nod your head. You probably can't do much to help them, but you at least listen, you understand. With depression, we don't get that. we start talking about it, and then quickly people become fed up with us and they don't want to deal with us anymore, and they just want us to shut up and stop talking about it, which, it's not good, it's not fine, but if that's the way you feel, whatever. But you can't just do that to your friend. You have to listen to them, and you have to acknowledge their feelings, and you have to realize that, it might be annoying to you to hear about it, but you have to realize that we're living with it. This is something we deal with every day. You can take an hour or so out of your day to listen to your friend and, make them feel like they're not alone and that they don't have to suffer in silence. And, it is hard to deal with, but just try to think about, the worst comes to worst. You get to listen to somebody ranting for maybe an hour or two. This person has to live with it 24/7, 365. Bipolar is not something that goes away. It's not something that can be, ignored. It just, it happens, and, it might seem like your friend is okay for a few weeks or a few months or even years. Sometimes people go years without experiencing any mood swings or manic or depressive episodes, which is very, very rare, but it happens. But you need to realize that during this time, bipolar is not gone. It's still there. It's not something that will go away and come back. It's not like a rash or a cold or anything. It's a genetic illness of the brain that is never gone. You are constantly fighting it. And it might be easy for you to just say, okay, well, I've heard enough, I can't deal with this. But just think about how much you're helping your friend or whoever. If you just, and even if you feel that way, just, the worst thing you can do is make somebody with this illness feel ashamed of having this illness. That's the number one big no-no when you're dealing with someone who has bipolar, is saying or doing something to imply that it's not okay that they're like that. That it's, it's something they shouldn't be allowed to talk about in public. Like, the stigma against any type of mental illness actually is absolutely disgusting, and it irritates the crap out of me. The idea that it's something you need to hide or it's something you're ashamed of. I could see this back in the 20s when, like, any illness was considered, an embarrassment, but, well, maybe later than the 20s. Back in the Victorian era, I suppose, when, people were thrown into madhouses, mostly women, because, they have an opinion. They talk out of line. You caught them masturbating, like, back in the day when everything and anything was a mental illness and it had to be locked away. That's not how we deal with mental illnesses in this day and age. There's treatments available, there's support groups, but none of that matters if your friend or whoever can't talk to you about it, because as far as they're concerned, you're ashamed of it, and you're ashamed of them because of what they are. And it's not something they can help. It's not like, people choose to be like this. It's an illness. I didn't have a choice when I had this illness. I was born with it. It's not like, I have just as much of a choice to be bipolar as, say, I had as much of a choice of being born with bipolar mood disorder as I had a choice being born with blue eyes or being born with dark hair. It's not something, well, the hair color you can change, obviously, but, like, it's not something I could decide. It's not something I can change. It's just, it's genetics. You can't change genetics. And if you make somebody feel ashamed for who they are and something they have no control over, they're not going to take that as, oh, well, he just doesn't like this aspect of myself or whatever. They're going to take it as, they don't like me. They know there's something wrong with me. They know I'm broken merchandise or whatever, which is a ridiculous statement to have to make. But unfortunately, thanks to the stigma of mental illness, it's seen as, it's seen as a disability, but not a disability in the sense of, oh, that person was born in a wheelchair. Oh, that person was born with diabetes. No, it's a disability that we, for some reason, choose to have. And this brings me to my second tip. I know, like, we appreciate when you try to help us. We really do. We appreciate when you try to talk us out of being depressed. You try to cheer us up. But there's just certain things you just don't say. Like, for instance, one of the most popular things is, well, you're sad. Why don't you just stop being sad? Like, why don't you just start looking at the positives in life? Why can't you just, not be depressed all the time? Why can't you lighten up? Why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? It sounds like you're trying to help us, but really, it's not helping, and it's actually making things worse. The way bipolar works is it changes the chemistry of your brain. No warning, no, red flag, no, oh, hey, you're gonna be depressed in 2 days, so I suggest you, buy lots of ice cream and shit. No, it just changes your chemistry. Perfectly normal people with bipolar, they go along life and they're fine, and then all of a sudden the chemicals change in their brain and they're trying to hang themselves, or they take off to Vegas and spend thousands of dollars that they don't have on gambling because they suddenly feel, oh, hey, I was born to do this. The stars have aligned. It's just, it's not a matter of being sad or just choosing to be depressed or choosing to be overly energetic, depending on if you're manic or depressant at the time. It's not a choice. It's chemistry. It's just chemistry. And when the chemistry in your brain changes, it's not like you can just say, oh, I feel sad, so I'm gonna go watch like a happy cartoon movie and eat some ice cream and then I'll feel better. No, it doesn't work that way. Even with clinical depression, which isn't, I don't know how clinical depression works, because bipolar and clinical depression aren't even the same thing as far as I know. But, like, I can tell you from the bipolar aspect of it, you can't just change your way of thinking. It's not possible. It's not doable. The chemistry in your brain changes, and there's nothing you can do about it. No amount of SpongeBob SquarePants or chocolate ice cream or comedians or anything is going to fix it. I mean, some of these things might make you feel happy, like, in the minute, and might make you feel better. And being with your friends, especially, like being in a social situation, as long as you're interacting with people, that might make it better for a little bit. But the fact is, if you're in a depressive state, you're going to stay in that depressive state until your brain says, okay, that's enough of that, and changes again. There are things you can do to help and to make sure it doesn't go from like a 4 and a 5 to like a 12 on a 10 scale. But the fact is, it happens and there's nothing we can do about it. So essentially asking us, why can't you just be positive? Why can't you just think happy thoughts? That would be the same as going up to a person who's paralyzed in a wheelchair and saying, oh, why can't you just walk? Why can't you just stand up? Like, I don't understand. And it's because they can't. Their body doesn't work that way. And neither does ours. Our body does not, like, there's no switch that we can flick. Our brain and our chemistry flicks that switch for us, and we can't flick it back whenever we damn well please. If we could, it wouldn't be an illness. It would be, it would still be an illness, but it wouldn't be, have to take medications and see 3 doctors a month illness, It's just not something we can have control over. And again, we do appreciate when you're trying to help us, but that's one of the very worst things that you can possibly say to us is, why can't you just be happy? Instead, just, the best thing you can do to support your friend or whoever in this situation is keep them busy. One big thing is just keep them busy. One thing that happens a lot when somebody's going through a depressive state is they can't function. They really can't. And sometimes one of the things, like, if you really want to help, just do these things. Make things easier for them. Like, if you live in the same house, pick up clutter. Like, one thing that really happens bad to bipolar people when they're going through a really bad depression is they can't do anything. They can't keep their house clean. They can't take care of people. They can't do that sort of thing. And the worst possible thing you can do is make them feel guilty over that, or like, that's something they should be able to do regardless. But just like I said, clutter is a huge problem. So instead of, like, berating them as to why can't you keep your house clean? Why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? Help them. Especially if you're living in the same place. I assure you, the one thing they will appreciate is if there's clutter around and you clean even a tiny bit up, because it puts less stress on us and it makes us feel like, you have our back. Regardless of how bad we get, you have our back. Another thing you can help with is cook for them. Do things that will make them happy. Like, talk to them. Be funny. Be happy, Because the best thing somebody in a depressive state can have is somebody there who's, not going to be annoyed that you're upset, and who instead of channeling all that energy into negative berating, or, instead to use that energy to try and, understand that we can't change the fact that we're in a depressive state, but you can help try and keep us, at a 2 instead of a 12. You can crack jokes, you can talk, you can show us funny movies or videos or anything, just something to keep a positive in their life, because when somebody's going through a depressive state, everything's negative. And unless you have somebody living with you who's always positive, or, unless you have friends who will hang out with you, and try to keep the positive energy and atmosphere, we will pick up on that, and it will make us feel better. I mean, it won't drag us miraculously out of our depressive state, but it will, make it easier to deal with. Finally, my last tip of advice is to just be there. It doesn't matter if you're physically there, even though that would be preferable, but just, it doesn't matter if you're physically there, because, it's not always possible to physically be there, but that is, if you can physically be there, fine, but just be there. just let them know that they can talk to you anytime. Let them know that if they ever need anything, you're there. And honestly, if things start to get really bad, don't be afraid to call their doctor or to call the hospital, because sometimes it's more than a normal person can handle. Sometimes it escalates to the point where they need to be hospitalized or they need to be kept under suicide watch, and that's okay. It's not great. Nobody wants their friend to be suicidal or anything, but that's just part of the illness sometimes. And not saying that everybody with bipolar is suicidal. That's another lie. That's not true. But being there for them, regardless of how bad or good it is, it just shows that you care. And in the end, they really appreciate that. Even if they don't appreciate it at the time, when they come out of this depression, they're gonna be like, oh man, like, he or she was there the entire time I needed them. And that's something that means the world to us. But unfortunately, it just doesn't happen enough, and it needs to. Like, whenever I have my parents or my friends, whenever, oh god, I'm gonna start crying and makeup's gonna go everywhere. But, it really helps to know that we're not alone. My friends and my parents are like my biggest support group. And I'd be lost without them. But sorry about that. My camera just stopped recording for some reason. But as I was saying, my friends and family are very important to me, and I know most of them, at least, have my back. But I know a lot of people aren't so lucky, and the ones who are lucky, sometimes their friends just don't get it. They just don't understand, and they need to be told. And that's why I'm making this video for Worldwide Bipolar Day, is because I want to help those people who are trying to help other people, so that, they can actually help them. Because let's face it, like, you can be trying to take down the guy who's trying to, trying to beat your friend up, but unless you know who you're looking for, then you can't do that until the person's already beating up your friend, in which case it's a little too late. But I'm just telling you, like, if you really want to help your friend, these are the things that you should do. And that you can do, and that it would mean the world to not only your friend, but eventually, hopefully, to you, because your friend needs you. And one part that I love about having friends is being able to be a good friend to those friends. And that's really, really important. It's super important to have good friends and family when you're living with something like bipolar. That's, it's constantly the shadow hanging over our heads. And, I can't even talk anymore. What's wrong with me? I'm just gonna stop now because I'm just rambling. But there is a Facebook page for World Bipolar Day. You're going to find it in the description here, down there, or over there, wherever YouTube decides to put it in the future. So click the link for more information, and, just if you have any questions, feel free to comment or, message me in private if it's something you want to discuss in private. I'm not an expert. I'm just saying things from my point of view, and, just what helps me, and what, what helps me when I need help. And when your friends need help, this will help them, hopefully. And yeah, if you have any questions, I'll help you as much as I can, but if you're genuinely concerned, don't be afraid to get help. Don't be afraid to call psychologists or the hospital, or because in the end, learning about the disease that your friend or whoever has will help them just as much as it'll help you. And vice versa, it'll help you just as much as it'll help them. So, yeah, that's where I'm gonna leave off the video before I start crying and makeup goes everywhere. So, happy Worldwide Bipolar Day, and bye.